Hey guys, welcome to the History of FMW, episode 16. This is going to cover the second half of 1996. As always, I'm joined by Bahu FMW. You can find him online at fmwwrestling.us or bahufmw.com. And we're going to jump right into it. Now, last episode, there was a lot of dealings going on between Tenryu and the War Company and Mr. Pogo. Brett, you had figured out a couple things about that deal, so if you want to go ahead and you want to tell us, go ahead.
Yeah, last episode I was kind of going over the whole Tenryu Pogo issue where Pogo ended up walking out and they offered him money. So I got exact clarity, exactly what happened. So originally they scheduled Tenryu versus Mr. Pogo in Sapporo, and it was going to be a no contest. Well, they at the last moment decided, no, you're going to walk out. And that's what ended up happening. Pogo decided he couldn't, change things around the day of when they sprung on him, that you're going to walk out of the match after Tenryu, attacks you and make it look like it's a real, really, you're just walking out. Well, Pogo didn't really like that. He felt like it made him look like a chicken. But also during that match, after Pogo leaves, his protege or assistant, Toru, who would be better known now today as Magnitude Kishiwada from Dragon Gate, he was still in the ring with Tenryu after Pogo left, and Tenryu legitimately beat the crap out of him and broke his eardrum during the match. And then they wanted that match to set up a Yokohama match between Tenryu and Pogo, and that's when War offered Pogo $10,000 to do the job, but Pogo did not take the offer, so he never got the $10,000, like I made mention last episode, because he refused to do any type of job outside FMW because he promised Rai, working in outside companies, that he would not do a job outside of FMW. So he never ended up making the money. But he also, and one of the reasons he pulled away from War and ended up just signing with FMW was because he didn't really feel that was a professional thing, that Tenryu legitimately beat the crap out of his protege.
All right. I always love the way that the Japanese do these kinds of deals. It's always very interesting. Now, before we get started, there's a lot of stuff going on from a storyline point of view. If you could bring us up to speed on the current angles of FMW going into July, featuring, Mr. Pogo, Terry Funk, and Victor Quinones.
Yes, I may mention last episode where it was Mr. Pogo turned face after he lost to Masato Tanaka, and Victor Quinones got upset at him and shoved Mr. Pogo, and then the Headhunters attacked him, and Mr. Pogo would end up turning face. And so this was to set up Mr. Pogo versus Mr. Pogo as a face against Terry Funk at Shia Dome in August. That was going to be their next big show, and it was going to be a double hell exploding barbed wire death match.
All right, and one last note from the previous one. Matsunaga, he announced that he was going to be leaving FMW in June. Where was he going to wind up going?
He ended up going to Big Japan. I may mention last episode there was the pay cut issue, and he just kind of wanted to be a bigger star, even though it was a small promotion, and he wanted to do the death matches, and he wasn't really getting that opportunity in FMW to do the type of death matches that he had in Wing, and he also wasn't really getting to be a star like he was in Wing while in FMW.
Speaking of that, his first match in Big Japan was on July 19th, and it was the famous circus net match where they had a scaffold across the ring, and you had a barbed wire net crisscrossing the ropes. It was Matsunaga and Great Kojika against Nakamaki and Yamakawa. This was the first of a string of what kind of became Big Japan's calling card for this time period, where they had kind of freak matches. And we'll go over a few of them maybe. But whose idea was it to have, they had the dry ice casket match, the piranha death match, the exploding balloon thumbtack death match? Who was the guy coming up with all of these crazy ideas?
It was a combo of Great Chika, who was the owner at the time of Big Japan, as well as Eiji Tosaka, who was the booker and referee. He's the president today of Big Japan. So it was kind of the combo of them working together and coming up with ideas.
Um, we're not going to talk about him too much, but I am curious. Do you have any favorites of these kind of freak matches?
Well, as far as this time period, the circus with Matsunaga and all that, the circus death match is my favorite when it comes to this. But a year earlier is actually my favorite one, where Kendo Nakasaki's doing a training with all the young boys in Yamakawa, and he ends up just going insane and just beating the crap out of them in around the town, and all these people that were watching like this, thinking that they were just going to watch this just expedition of just match. Nagasaki's just beating the crap all over town, going into stores and using objects, beating all his students. He just goes crazy and just leaves a big mess all over the neighborhood.
Yeah, I I actually watched that a couple months ago, and they're going into shops and destroying food stands, and I always wonder who pays for that. But it's a different time period, and when most people know of the death matches from this era, everyone has kind of seen a few of these, insane stipulation matches. They had alligator matches where Matsunaga wrestles an alligator and all kinds of goofy crap. So going on to FMW news, FMW, they ran Kuroken Hall on July 21st. The main event was Kentaro Kanemura versus Super Leather, and it drew a sellout. Now, last episode we talked about how they were doing more of the death matches. Onita came back. Onita was coming back for appearances. Is there any feeling that FMW is having a resurgence after the second half of 1995?
Yeah, no, they've been doing it. They've been doing well since the beginning of the year, pretty much. There was comfort, and FMW never made a lot of money, or this FMW never really made a lot of money. But at this time period, they're making a profit. They're doing well. Everyone's getting paid the amount of money that they want. Everyone's happy. This is the highlight, pretty much, of the new FMW as far as the time period and how much money they're bringing in and stuff like this. So, yeah, they're definitely, Corrigan Hall shows are bringing them money. They're doing well with the Sapporo shows. House shows never really made them that much money, and it was kind of always a loss. But as far as the entire 6 years of the new FMW, this is the best as far as their drawing.
What is the current shape of Hayabusa, and what are the plans for him going forward short term?
So he's still he's still the top guy and everything, but he's still recovering from these injuries. And I mentioned last episode where he was told by a doctor, "You're going to need to take a year off." Well, he couldn't miss May 5th, so he had to work the Kawasaki match and everything. But after this is about now 7 months, a little less than 7 months, he's decided, I'm coming back full time. I gotta, I'm the ace. I need to reclaim my spot and show why I'm the ace. And so he comes back early, and like I made mention last episode, they did an angle where he had left for a couple months and he had kind of disappeared, and he just showed up backstage watching one of the Koji Nakagawa saw him from the ring and ran in attacking him because they had kind of portrayed like Hayabusa had left FMW when they needed him. So this was to set up the Hayabusa Nakagawa match for Shio Dome on August 1st.
Speaking of which, we're going to go over that kind of match by match. The main event of the August 1st Shio Dome show was a kind of famous Terry Funk Pogo explosion match, but we're gonna go at bit by bit. What was Hayabusa's comeback like?
So his match against Koji Nakagawa, he gets cheered pretty well in this match. The crowd is chanting Hayabusa, especially afterwards, but the match itself is horrible. It's one of the worst Hayabusa matches. He's still not fully recovered. Koji Nakagawa's not that great of a wrestler. He's okay, but it just fell apart. And they booked it for a 20-minute match, and it just didn't go well. They never really clicked. They didn't click very well in that match. So it was a disappointing match. But if you watch the match afterwards, you see Hayabusa just kind of collapse, and while walking back to the back, and everyone's just screaming Hayabusa, Hayabusa, and it's actually a cool scene watching it. But as far as the match quality, it's one of the worst Hayabusa matches.
Also on the show, Kanemaru defeated Masato Tanaka to win the FMW Independent title. What kind of effort is there being made to build up the new stars?
Yeah, they're pushing Tanaka and Kanemaru. Both of them were kind of brought in as kind of Tanaka is kind of the number two face, and Kanemaru right there along with him. Arai really liked both of these guys, and Go Ito, the booker, really made sure to push these two guys. Always keep them strong, and Masato Tanaka had a lot of talent, and everyone saw that in ECW and stuff, that he was a great worker, and FMW picked up on it right away, because usually they don't push someone like they pushed Tanaka after just less than 3 years of a career, but they gave him the number 2 spot pretty much right away, just behind Hayabusa. So they were making sure to push, keep them strong for the upper mid card matches.
In the main event, Terry Funk defeated, I'm using quote fingers, Mr. Pogo in it's a double hell exploding match, so two sides of the ring don't have ropes. And then they have these barbed wire nets with the bombs in them. Now during the match, Pogo is severely injured. If you could just kind of go over the match for us.
Yeah, it only goes a couple minutes until Mr. Pogo falls into the exploding barbed wire that's on the outside of the ring, and when he fell, part of the barbed wire kind of just chipped the bottom of his chin and kind of pulled his neck up and broke a vertebrae in his neck. And Terry Funk doesn't know this, so he stalled when Mr. Pogo's not getting up. He's just laying there in barbed wire, glass, all this stuff, and Terry Funk doesn't know what to do, so he just starts. He doesn't know, he has to do something, so he ends up blowing fire on Mr. Pogo, not knowing what happened. So Mr. Pogo's laying there in barbed wire after just breaking his vertebrae in his neck, and now he's getting fire blown at him. So, and they end up getting word that Mr. Pogo wasn't going to be able to get up. So they call the match right. It only went a couple minutes, and there's an ambulance, and they have to stretcher off Mr. Pogo. And I mean, Mr. Pogo was never. I mean, especially the FMW version of Mr. Pogo was never a great high flyer or anything like this. But this limited Mr. Pogo even more for the rest of his career.
All right, yeah, we're going to be talking about Mr. Pogo's injury a lot more going forward, but this leads to FMW. They ran Tokyo on August 23rd. The main event was a no-rope barbed wire match between the Wing Army, Kanemaru, Hito, and Hosaka against Masato Tanaka, Kuroda, and
Nanjo Hayato.
Nanjo. I've never honestly paid attention to this guy, so I'm sorry about that. What happened during this match?
Yeah, so this was it was at Corrigan Hall, and this match, like I said, this is kind of the highlight of FMW, this time period and everything, as far as they're making money. This type of FMW, the new FMW. So they're making money at this point, and also the crowds are insane as far as just how loud they're getting and everything. And this is one of the matches that I think about when I think about the new FMW and stuff, just how over the crowd was as far as just the screaming and everything. And in this match, Nanjo, who we haven't really talked about too much, he's been with FMW the last couple years. He came in from the PWC, the Pro Wrestling Crusaders promotion, back in like '94 or so, and he's just been an opening card guy. Well, this match, he's kind of a star in this match. He's doing a Sasuke special over the over the barbed wire. He's doing a moonsault over the off a ladder. He's kind of doing all the Hayabusa moves and everything in this barbed wire match, and just the crowd's going crazy. They're chanting for him. But Nanjo's thing is he was just too small, and even in this match, he takes the loss. And I mean, they don't really follow up very much with him after this even. But this match, the crowd is going crazy, and like I said, this is just kind of like, this is FMW, the no rope barbed wire. This is kind of the it's different than the Onita type of matches. This is more athletic, more moves, more just a different style than what the FMW with Onita had been. And personally, I love these kind of matches, especially with how much the crowd was just so energetic and how loud they would get.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, when I was doing tape trading, after Onita, this is the era that I really loved. The six man, the barbed wires, all of the young talent. I loved it. Also on this tour, we start seeing a character called the Black Hayabusa. Who was this?
That was Jose Estrada. He was best known for being in Los Boricuas in WWF, but he came in through Puerto Rico with Victor Quinones, and they came up with Hayabusa, just being kind of a Mexican gimmick and everything. They just kind of the natural thing was to have an evil Hayabusa. So they came up with this gimmick, but it didn't really take off too well, but it lasted for about a year or so. And actually, it started with Hayabusa and Black Hayabusa teaming up, but after one match, Black Hayabusa turned on him and then proceeded to join the Puerto Rican army, and then he would end up eventually becoming the Crypt Keeper later on in FMW.
Okay. All right, cool. And okay, going into September, on September 1st, I just loved reading these little tidbits. Samurai TV debuted. Now, just to give a background, Samurai TV, anyone who was a tape trader, and even now, people know it, but back in the day when I would get my tapes, it would, most shows would start with this Samurai TV, Fighting TV, and you would get little bits and pieces online that there is this satellite-only wrestling channel. And as a kid, it sounded so mysterious and so amazing. If you want to talk really quickly about that.
Well, yeah, so this is really important because we've talked about how FMW, the beginning years, Onita, they didn't have TV, but now they ended up getting with Gaura, pretty much the only station that was willing to show FMW or Michinoku Pro or stuff like this. Well, now with Samurai TV starting, FMW now has TV. Big Japan now has TV. Battle Arts, all these different independent promotions can now be watched by fans. Now, it wasn't, this is the first year of a cable network, so it's not like it was overwhelming success right away, but this was a way to get these smaller promotions outlets so people can watch their shows, a 2-hour show once a month or twice a month or so. So it was very important for the independent scene that there was television, because otherwise it was just commercial tapes. And it's hard sometimes to get a following through just commercial tapes because you got to spend $100 to get a VHS tape back then and everything. So this is a way of getting, a wrestling fan's gonna, I want to watch, Big Japan. Well, let me check what else is on, what other wrestling shows are on this network, and you could possibly get more fans based off this.
Yeah, and I don't know, for anyone who wants to know, there are many ways to watch it nowadays. There are a couple services that you can buy if you want to watch it now, but the one thing that I started watching it a couple of years ago, and you realize there's only about 10 new shows per month, and then the rest of it is just kind of reruns, but it's still such a great service, and it's actually not that popular, though. Supposedly it fluctuates between 10 and 20,000 buyers a month, so it's not super popular, but still a great resource for wrestling in the country. So going back to FMW on September 1st, they returned to Nagoya, and the main event was a 6-man exploding match, kind of similar, Tanaka, Kuroda, and Nakagawa against Hito, Hosaka, and Kanemaru. What role did Hayabusa play in this match?
Well, first off, I wanted to kind of talk about the match itself and everything. And this is, again, one of the more popular matches because of just how brutal it is and everything. And in this match in particular, you have Koji Nakagawa. He ends up getting thrown into the exploding barbed wire, and then he takes the enziguri kick just seconds later and falls into the exploding barbed wire outside the ring. So he takes 2 exploding barbed wire bumps in just a couple seconds between each other. Just devastating, awesome show. Just looks awesome. But then you also have Kanemaru, who ends up getting burnt really bad, taking an explosion near his ear, and he ends up missing the whole month as a result of this match. And because he ended up missing the whole month, Shoshi Arai ended up giving him a $10,000 bonus for this match, which actually upset Hideki Osaka, who was also in the match. He was like, "Wait, why does Kanemaru get a $10,000 bonus for this match when I was in the match also and I didn't get any bonus?" And they were friends, so this actually kind of created some conflict between the two guys. But as far as Hayabusa is watching this match from outside, like he's standing there right by ringside watching the match and everything. And then afterwards, Masato Tanaka calls Hayabusa to the ring, and pretty much everything gets made. They make up. Essentially, Hayabusa's accepted back into FMW and everything because of that whole he disappeared, and so Hayabusa and Tanaka hug and all is well. And so Hayabusa is now accepted by the FMW team after this match.
Okay. Now I did have one question I wanted to ask. Did Onita give these kind of bonuses when people would get hurt?
I had never heard of that. I mean, it might have, but I never read a story or anything like that happening.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious about that because it's very nice of him to do that. That's all. So on September 11th, FMW, they promoted another Wing named show. What were the highlights of this show?
So this was pretty much the show I was talking about last episode with Hayabusa versus Hito, where Hito is the beloved fan favorite in this match, and everyone's booing Hayabusa, which is probably the first time that Hayabusa was getting booed in Japan. And so Hito ends up pulling Hayabusa's mask off during this match. He takes a barbed wire bat and starts carving up Hayabusa, and so Hayabusa's bleeding all over. His face is just covered in blood, and then Hayabusa kind of snaps during this match, and you don't see Hayabusa really like this. You've never seen him like this. He ends up embracing the heel, pretty much embracing being a heel for this match, and just goes crazy and just starts biting Hito's head and cutting his forehead open and using the barbed wire bat and kind of embracing the boos and everything. And Dark Side Hayabusa hadn't showed up, but this was kind of the beginning of the Dark Side Hayabusa aspect, where he's just a different character, pretty much just a total heel, and by just how much he's destroying Hito, and ends up just putting Hito away. And the fans are just booing Hayabusa so much because this was that loyal Wing fan audience that had came, from a couple years earlier that came in.
And we've kind of covered this a few times, but the Mickey Ibaragi, he never got any money from these shows, right?
No, he just would. He never got any money from these shows, but like I said a couple episodes ago, he had threatened to sue FMW based off them just using the Wing name, but then nothing ended up ever happening. It was just idle threats.
Okay. So going forward on September 15th, FMW, they ran a large show in Saitama. If you want to go over, what are the big the storylines of the show?
Well, yeah, the Lethal Weapon ended up kind of breaking apart during this match, or during the show. The Gladiator, Ricky Fuji ends up losing, and the Gladiator and Horace Boulder end up just turning on Ricky Fuji. So they end up breaking up Lethal Weapon, which had been kind of the number one heel group since the beginning of the new FMW back in May '95. So this pretty much is the end of Lethal Weapon, and it's actually kind of sad because after Ricky Fuji gets turned on, they show him crying backstage, just blubbering, just so upset over getting turned on by the Gladiator and Horace Boulder. And then in the main event, they have Hayabusa, or the FMW team, against the Puerto Rican team, and it's a yen on a pole match, and it's for $200,000. Now keep in mind, FMW, they had a $250,000 match for Kawasaki that FMW lost, that the Puerto Rican team, Terry Funk and Mr. Pogo, had won for Victor Quinones. So this was kind of FMW's chance of getting the money back. So Hayabusa ends up climbing the pole and retrieving the money. So it was kind of a callback to the Kawasaki match, so that FMW had won back most of the money that they lost 4 months earlier.
So this led to September 20th, where Hayabusa wrestled Oya for a chance at Kanemaru's independent title. Oya won the match, and after the match, Jinsei Shinzaki appeared. If you can go over what did he do on the show?
So he just after the match, so Oyo defeats Hayabusa, which they had a rivalry going back to a year earlier, and so after Hayabusa loses, he's upset and everything, punching himself for just losing to Oya because he always felt like he was better than Oya. So then Jinsei Shinzaki comes out. He has his hair all grown out and everything. He had worked. The year prior he had worked in WWF and his contract had ended. He worked one New Japan show at the Tokyo Dome against Great Muta back in April '96, and he hadn't wrestled any in between this. So he taken about 5 months off or so, and like I said, had his hair grown out. And he comes to the ring, and all he does is just pray to Hayabusa, and just walks away. Well, that's all it was to set up a match between Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki for the Michinoku Sumo Hall show in October.
I have a few questions about this. First, where was Shinzaki wrestling at this time?
Yeah, like I said, he hadn't been wrestling at all. He had taken 5 months off. He came back right after leaving WWF and started work that Tokyo Dome show for New Japan against Great Muta, where he lost. But he was Hakushi in that match, I believe. And then that was kind of the death of the Hakushi gimmick, which Michinoku would play up a year later. But so this was kind of the return of Jinsei Shinzaki for the first time in several years to Japan. Like I said, he hadn't really been working he hadn't been working 5 months, so he'd been taking the time off and everything. So this was kind of his reappearance to Japanese wrestling. He ended up showing back up at Michinoku Pro the next day, and then he started working for Michinoku Pro that in September '96.
All right, and so to do the match, like, did Michinoku Pro, did they request Hayabusa, or did FMW offer him? Like, how did the deal come about?
It was just a talent exchange. It was Hayabusa is gonna work your Sumo Hall show, and we'll get Great Sasuke for our Komasawa show in December. So it's just a talent exchange.
Okay. I know that people hate the Hakushi gimmick where he's got the tattoos, but the first time I ever saw him was at the ECW Heatwave show, and I thought it looked really cool when I was 12. So what do I know? Going on September 24th, they ran a show at Kurokan Hall, and in the main event in a tag match, it was a very big angle. Terry Funk and Gladiator, they defeated Hayabusa and Masato Tanaka, and after the match, the Victor Kanonis group, they destroyed Hayabusa. Mike Awesome gives him the big power bomb, and they lay an American flag on him, and this leads to them calling out Onita. Did I miss anything in the angle there?
Well, this is where they've officially become the Funk Masters of Wrestling. Like I may mention a couple days earlier, the Lethal Weapon group had ended when Gladiator turned on Ricky Fuji. So this was just kind of set up, the brand new heel group. They had been just the Puerto Rican army, so it's kind of like the combo, the Lethal Weapon and the Puerto Rican group had kind of combined together to become the top number one heel group.
So Funk says that his FMW, the Funk Masters of Wrestling, is going to be the real FMW. What does he mean by that, and how do the fans take it?
He means it by, like, Hayabusa and Tanaka, those are just Onita's boys, and Onita doesn't have a heart. He has the heart of a chicken, as Funk would say. So his boys, Hayabusa and Tanaka, they're going to have the heart of a chicken. Also, they're not going to have the real fighting spirit that his group of FMW guys had. The Headhunters, Mike Awesome, Super Leather. They're the real FMW. They have the real heart, because they're from America, they're from Puerto Rico, so they have the real fighting spirit. So they're the real FMW, whereas the Hayabusa and the Tanakas, they can't compete because they're Onita's boys, and if Onita can't Onita's not he can't properly teach them when Onita doesn't have the proper heart to teach them.
Now, like I said during the promo, Terry Funk, he calls out Onita. Is this a planned call out? Like, basically, to make a bigger, a bigger question, What is Onita's relationship with FMW at this time, and with Terry Funk calling him out? Are there planned matches, or are they trying to egg Onita on? Like, what is the deal behind this?
Mr. Pogo a couple episodes ago, he had made call out to Onita. He wanted another match with Onita because everyone kind of knew Onita was going to come back eventually. They just didn't know when. Now Onita himself didn't know when he was coming back. So when Mr. Pogo was calling it out, it obviously at the moment didn't happen because by the plans changed and everything. So around the fall of '96, pretty much Onita now knows he's coming back. I think over the summer he had kind of decided he was going to come back, but it wasn't really well, he hadn't really let anyone know. Well, by this point, it's kind of now, all right, Onita's coming back, but it's not official or anything like that. But I think everyone kind of has an idea, okay, Onita is coming back, and it's probably pretty soon. And so Funk is calling him out because he wants to have a match with Onita. It's going to make him money.
Now, with Onita coming back, and Terry Funk being a bigger part of the company, is there more of a concerted effort to bring in, to bring the death matches back and reestablish FMW as we do the death matches?
Well, it's just kind of a political move because you have Kanamura who likes the death matches, and he's close with Goito at this time, who's the booker, and that was kind of Goito's role as the booker, where it's like he has all these different ears, he has all these different people talking in his ear, going, "Hey, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way." So you have Kanamura going, "Let's have the barbed wire matches. That fits me better. That gives me, I have my style is more highlighted when we have these matches." Whereas you have a Hayabusa or Hayabusa side going, let's no, this the original plan was to have straight matches and everything like that to showcase his style. And Hayabusa is working for the office also at this point, so obviously he's going to have a say in everything that he's helping booking and whatnot, so he's going to have a big say in the movement. So it's just kind of these political fights. And I may mention Hayabusa and Kanemaru never really got along in FMW. And I'm gonna guess one of the reasons is because just these kind of political fights of just kind of struggling to where the company needs to go. And so, like I said, Kanemaru and it wants to have these barbed wire matches with Tanaka and everything, and you got Hayabusa side wanting to have the high flying, straight style, strong style matches.
Did Hayabusa have any did he have a feeling that when they would book these matches, would he have any feeling of like he didn't really want to do them, but he would do them for the company's sake, or did he not really mind it?
Yeah, and he would do them, but he didn't do very many barbed wire matches. He only did 3 barbed wire matches ever, and he would do them especially for the big shows and stuff. But it was always kind of kept limited and everything for his type of matches. He would do street fights, that's no big deal and whatnot, but it doesn't really show. He didn't feel like showcased his ability. He was a good wrestler, and to have these kind of street fights, they weren't really showcasing his ability, um, you know, as much as he felt that they should.
Yeah, when you're taking down the ropes, there's not much that he can do.
Yeah,
So
and also, those 3 barbed wire matches I may mention. Every time he got scarred up really bad in every single time. Just all his scars that he has are pretty much from 3 matches of barbed wire matches.
yeah. So after the show, they do Megumi Kudo comes out, and she announces that she's going to be retiring on the May 5th show in 1997. So they're already building, the big show a year prior. Why was she retiring?
She had turned 27, and she and Combat Toyota had came in through the All Japan Women's Dojo, where you retire at 27. You give your body that style, and that's just how they were taught. You give your body out and just destroy your body for 10 years, and to be able to live a normal life, you retire at 27, so you can move on and be healthy. Because if you just keep going, your body's going to get destroyed, especially the style that they worked. So she just was under that mindset and just decided it was time to start a new life after wrestling.
I have one question about that. Now, as some people may not know, Kudo is married to Hito. Were they dating at this time? Did that factor into it at all?
They were probably dating around this time, but it was completely private and everything. I actually asked Hayabusa one time. I go, "Did you guys know that they were together?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I didn't care." So, oh, so they knew, but I know when I talked to Ricky Fuji, he didn't know. So it was just kind of one of those. Some people know, some people don't. But as far as this time period, I don't think it was known right because this is still another 6 months or so before she retired. I think it wasn't really well known until the very end, but I don't know exactly when it was found out. But like I said, Hayabusa knew, some people knew, but some people didn't.
Yeah, I was just curious if if she's thinking, "Hey, it's time to get a real life. We're going. I've got a heavy thing going." I thought maybe
Yeah.
that might kind of
Well, she
go
got
into it.
married about it, it's well, she got married a year later, so it's still, or about 15 months later she got married. So it wasn't like she retired and then 2 months later she got married. So she was just, I think it was kind of, now I can let everyone know I am dating Hito kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, that was always a big thing on the boards of like this ugly scarred weirdo is dating this beautiful woman, But anyway, um,
Because it wasn't, sorry, it was a rule that the men and the women weren't allowed to date. And so, I mean, Hito probably would have gotten big time trouble if it had came out and been public knowledge, or that he was dating Kudo, because it was a strict rule at the time.
hmm. All right. And also, how is Mr. Pogo doing at this time?
So he's still, I mean, he's recovering. He's able to come back in November. So, I mean, it was a 3 month injury. And like I said, he was very limited the rest of his career. But I mean, the fact that he could work matches 3 months later, it wasn't like he was paralyzed or anything like that. But it was just, I mean, he broke a vertebrae, it was broke a part of his neck. So it was still a severe injury. But due to, Mr. Pogo already being kind of limited and not like he was doing 450s or anything like that, he was able to come back after 3 months. But he was still in pretty bad shape at this point.
So, on October 3rd, it was announced that IWA's upcoming tour would be its final tour, and they would be closing the doors. As with all of the companies, they do come back. We haven't talked about it much since the Kawasaki Dream King of the Death Matches show. How did IWA fall apart so fast when they Dave wrote a whole little article about how they had one of the biggest shows of the year. They drew 26,000 some odd people, and here they are a couple months later, basically bankrupt. What happened? How did it fall apart so quickly?
Like, yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much just the balloon popped, so the bubble burst. And I mean, it happened with Wing, where Wing was a successful company and it was the in thing. And then, a year later, and it's no longer the in thing, and they're losing money and wrestlers are defecting. And that's exactly what happened with IWA Japan, where it was the in thing for a little while. It had Cactus Jack, they had Terry Funk, and then they weren't able to, I mean, the wrestling business is hard. And to be able to run a successful promotion, and after paying, big names like that, and you have an unsuccessful tour, or you don't make that much money off a Corrigan Hall show, and you're not able to pay the same, and then you have to make some cuts and everything. And then it just, okay, now you're not, now you don't have Terry Funk or Cactus Jack on the show. Now you have, Tarzan Goto is the main guy, and oh, he's not drawing like, the previous guys and stuff like that. So it's like I said, it's just a very difficult thing to just keep a successful promotion, especially back then. And especially when the bubble burst, and just the new thing is no longer the new thing.
What does this mean for Godo and Ganosuke?
So they um ended up and just so around this time period, several promotions are kind of closing down. The Tokyo Pro promotion is closing down. Koto Fuyuki's group and everything, they had been working, freelance. And so there was a sponsor that was going to start up a new promotion called FFF. And so they had gotten Goto, Ganosuke to agree. It was going to be Fuyuki's group. It was going to be guys and everything like that. And they booked a Corrigan Hall show, and the sponsor ended up pulling out right before the show. And they'd already booked Corrigan Hall, so what they did was they canceled the show itself, but they actually let the fans that bought the tickets, they could still go to Corrigan Hall, and the wrestlers were still there selling merchandise and everything in front of when you go into Corrigan Hall and stuff. But as far as the ring and everything, there was no ring, and they just never had a show. And so FFF is a promotion that literally closed before it ever started, and that was pretty much it, as far as the Goto group. And we'll get into it next episode. Ganosuke, I just want to go back home. So he ended up wanting to go back to FMW. Goto would end up getting a deal with Big Japan after the FFF group would fall apart, which would change FMW, the history of FMW, because if FFF had taken off, Koto Fuyuki was a part of that group, and as a result, the Fuyuki group ends up finding its home in FMW as well.
So close to dodging that bullet. Okay. On October 10th, Hayabusa wrestled the Michinoku Pro Sumo Hall show. He lost to Jinsei Shinzaki. Is Hayabusa perceived any differently on these outside shows? And how does he feel about doing those shows?
He got a good ovation for the show. It's nothing. He's not the hometown guy. This was his first time in Michinoku Pro, so it wasn't like he got this big giant ovation or anything like that. Especially going up against Shinzaki, who was the home promotion guy. But so he got a pretty good ovation, and Hayabusa was always over with the crowds and everything. As far as doing the other shows, he didn't mind. He always was looking for more work. It's an extra payday on top of your the salary. It's kind of like getting an extra gig than what you're making your base salary. You're going to make more money out doing. So he didn't mind working other promotions and everything like that. Next year, when he ends up working for All Japan more, his wife actually has a big time issue with how often he's gone. But as far as he goes, he's fine with working as much as possible.
Now, sometime during October, Victor Quinones gets in a real fight with Fumi Saito. Who is Saito? Why did they get into a fight, and what was the fallout?
Fumi Saito is used to work for the Pro Wrestling Weekly magazine. He had a column every week in every issue, and he actually was good friends with Hayabusa and helped Hayabusa a lot after Hayabusa's accident, and they were real good, close personal friends. But as far as what happened was, I believe Saito wrote something negative about Quinones in the magazine, and Quinones got word of it and had issue and kind of sucker punched Saito. I actually reached out to Fumi. I used to talk to him a lot about 10 years ago or so, but I reached out to him about this, but I didn't get a response. So if I end up getting a response as far as the exact details, I'll let you know. But as far as what I know, I just believe Quinones had issues with what he said and sucker punched him as a result.
Yeah, that sounds like one of the issues that they don't want to really publicize. So I'd be amazed if people want to speak candidly about it. So on October 28th, FMW, they ran Tokyo. Kanemaru defeated Oya in a match for the independent title, and afterwards, the Gladiator, who holds the Brass Knuckles title, he challenges Kanemaru to unite the titles. We talked about it last episode, how the title was brought about just because they kind of had another title laying around. I don't know. What are the politics of just saying, hey, screw this title that we've only had for a few months? What is the process behind that?
Well, they put the money down for it and everything, so it was theirs, so you might as well use it. But yeah, it didn't really help with having two champions. So they just decided to kind of merge the titles together, and All Japan had the Triple Crown at this time, so it kind of added the prestige to have double titles, to have one champion with two titles, kind of like how it was kind of cool to have the All Japan guy have 3 title belts. So this was kind of FMW's counter of, well, our top guy has two title belts.
Also on the show, Mr. Pogo announces that he's going to be retiring on December 11th. Um, Now backstage, there's an altercation with Onita. I'll let you kind of tell the story, but what happens between the two of them?
Yeah, so around this time period is when Onita has officially announced that he is coming back in November 1996. He told Arai, "I'm coming back. I'm going to wrestle." And Arai's like, "No, you can't. We just promoted you for a year to a retirement tour. We can't just come back, right? You know, in a year and a half. You can't just come back right away." And Onita goes, "Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm going to have a match with Mr. Pogo. We're gonna team." So Anita came up with the idea. So he's gonna go. Mr. Pogo is going to announce he's gonna retire, and he wants Onita to team up with him in his retirement match. Well, Mr. Pogo didn't really want to retire. So Arai goes, "Wait, Mr. Pogo doesn't want to retire. So how's this going to work?" And Onita goes, "Oh no, it's no big deal. He can just come back after 6 months. Like he could just retire for 6 months and then he'll come back. It's no big deal." But at this time period, Onita wants to kind of have this special feel of, "I'm coming back," and it's Mr. Pogo's retirement. And I'm gonna guess also Mr. Pogo's retirement added to the fact that, like, ooh, what if this show doesn't sell out? My comeback doesn't sell out. Just kind of Mr. Pogo retiring kind of was guaranteed the show is going to sell out and be a successful profit show. Well, so it's brought up to Mr. Pogo, "You're going to retire," and like I said, Mr. Pogo doesn't want to retire. So what they end up having to do is come up with a plan, and they have to pay Mr. Pogo 6 months' salary straight up. Here you go, and he just gets to sit at home for 6 months. And as a result, he has to leave FMW. And so this is kind of the beginning of Onita just deciding, this is what's going to happen, and Arai allowing it, but kind of getting annoyed by it. But again, Arai's in charge, but just kind of letting Onita take charge and make the decisions and everything like that. So this was something that just kind of was the beginning of this Onita freight train of just upsetting and pissing off everybody, by just, "Hey, I make the rules. I started FMW, even though it's not even my company anymore. I'm still making the rules." And Arai let him.
But so in theory, the FMW office, they could have said, "Hey, Onita, we aren't going to do that," but then Onita would just go somewhere else and give his name value to some other company, right?
Yeah, but also you got to remember, this Arai was brought in because of Onita. Arai would not be here with that would not be Arai wouldn't be running FMW if it wasn't for Onita giving him that job. So Arai always felt indebted to Onita for hiring him in the first place when he was just some no 20 something year old kid looking for a job. And so Arai always felt indebted to, listening and just always giving in to Onita. And Arai at the end would say that was a mistake, but at the time period, yeah, he wanted, he always wanted to do well with Onita. He always wanted to get along with Onita.
One of the pieces of feedback I get a lot for this show is, a lot of people, they really like the show. They want to tell us it's fun, but one piece of feedback I get a lot is people realizing, they say, "I never knew that Onita was such a dick." There's no other way to put it. He was such a bossy guy, and this is a great example of that.
Yeah,
So
and it's going to get worse too as we get along to where, ultimately he ends up having to leave FMW, and we'll get into that later on. But yeah, no, it's him. Just, he has an ego, and I like Onita. I respect him, but I know kind of what to deal with Onita, and that's a lot of politics and a lot of ego. And he's a star. He made thousands and or millions of dollars through wrestling, and he has a right to that ego. But again, it's kind of like the Hulk Hogan thing of, hey, he has that right to have that ego, but it's still really annoying, and he's still really a dick.
yeah. I want to say one more thing about that. Austin one time, he said that you can't be a megastar without being very selfish. John Cena, Steve Austin, The Rock, and in this case, Onita. You can't be a megastar without being incredibly selfish, but the megastar rises the whole crew, and it's a hard argument. That's all, but whatever.
Well,
That's Onita.
the only issue is, does Onita really have that same popularity that he did, because if we're talking 94, 95 Onita, then yeah, he definitely. But this is 96, 97 Onita, and people are, and we'll get into it here in a couple minutes. Onita, the fans are not the most keen on Onita coming back, especially the Tokyo fans.
So that actually leads us right to November 26th. On November 26th, Onita appears at Kuroken Hall, and he tells the fans that in his whole life he's told one lie, and that was that he would never wrestle again. And he asked the fans, "Will you allow me to come back for another their match?" What is the reaction from the fans?
Yeah, they're booing him. I mean, it's loud booing. They are not happy that Onita's coming back. The Pacific show, they're not welcoming Onita back, and so Onita is trying to kind of. I'm only coming back for one time. I'm only coming back for Mr. Pogo. He's begging me. Look, everyone, Mr. Pogo is begging. How can I turn him down? I have to come back. I have to, fight Terry Funk after what they've done to Mr. Pogo. And he had came back after Mike mentioned. So this is the show where the Funk Masters of Wrestling are just beating down Mr. Pogo, laying him out, and Onita comes to make the save and everything, and Mr. Pogo, asks for his comeback. So again, it's he's begging me. I have to accept it. It's Mr. Pogo. And again, Terry Funk's been calling me out all like the last 6 months or so. So I need to get revenge on him. So this is kind of the best position Onita put himself in to look, I have to come back. And then the fans still turned on him because they knew, nope, you're coming back after a year of retirement, of touring and everything, and you're coming back too soon. I mean, he could have came back 3 years later in '98, and he probably wouldn't have, he probably would have been accepted a lot better. But 1996, just a year and a half after that retirement, that was just too soon, especially for the Korakuen audience.
Now, December 11th is going to be the big show. It's set. Onita is going to come back. What are the main angles and what are the main matches set up for the show going into it?
Yeah, so we have Megumi Kudo taking on Shinobu Kandori. Like you may mention, Megumi Kudo's retiring, so she's kind of going on her own retirement tour at this point, and facing off against the bigger name Japanese women wrestlers from other companies. And Shinobu Kandori is a legitimate badass woman who has done women's MMA in the past. And so FMW and LLPW come up with an agreement, and the first match is on this show, and Kudo is brawling with Kandori and everything, but Kandori ends up just choking her out and getting the win on this show. And afterwards, Kudo attacks her. She wants another match. So this is that'll lead to 1997, and then you have the Gladiator versus Kanemaru, and with the Gladiator defeating Kanemaru, so he merges the independent title and the brass knuckles title. So now the Gladiator is the first double titles champion. So it was kind of a new. Like the first, it kind of became its own title belt. And so like the Gladiator was known as the first double titles champion. So that was kind of like it created its own brand new linear history of the title belts. So then we have Hayabusa versus the Great Sasuke. This match is, I would consider, kind of a disappointment. It's kind of would be known as a high flying dream match, but Hayabusa is still banged up around this time period. And I actually asked him about this match, and he said, yeah, both me and Sasuke were banged up still. And so he was disappointed in the match. It's still a good match, but it's nothing like you would think a Hayabusa Sasuke match is, especially considering Hayabusa had a really good match with Taka Michinoku a month earlier. But this match is kind of a disappointment, but overall a good match. And then we have the retirement match with Mr. Pogo retiring, Atsushi Onita coming back, teaming up with Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Masato Tanaka. And I had made mention about politics and everything. Koji Nakagawa had he worked for the office as well, and he wanted in this match. So he was originally scheduled for this match, and he wanted the pinfall. He wanted to get the pinfall, and just politics and everything. He ended up getting pulled out of this match, and Tanaka ended up getting the win over Terry Funk and it's Terry Funk, the Headhunters, and Hisagatsu Oya. And it's just a crazy wild brawl for 20 minutes pretty much. And Funk is bleeding, and pretty much just, I mean, it's a Onita street fight. I mean, it's nothing great. It's nothing like what the Wing FMW barbed wire matches from a couple months earlier that we were talking about. It's nothing like that. It's an Onita street fight, and it serves its purpose. And Tanaka ends up getting the win over Headhunter A, and afterwards, Mr. Pogo and Onita are embracing, and is actually out in the ring, and you just see Onita just over, Hayabusa pretty much, and just Onita and Pogo, they look like the stars, and Hayabusa, who the whole company been based around off of for a year and a half, pretty much. He looks secondary to Onita, and that was Onita's plan. Though he wanted to come back, and he wanted to be the top guy, and there was always that kind of resentment of, hey, this is my promotion. Who are you to to be the number one guy? I'm the number one guy. So it's just this politic fighting, and Onita kind of on this day, Onita was the star and everything. So he he looked and it's just going to be a fight throughout for Onita, and as far as just this political fight between the two.
Yeah, it makes it sound like when Hogan lost to the Ultimate Warrior, but after the match, he's the one grandstanding and taking the shine and everything.
Well, I kind of think of it as WrestleMania 9 with Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, and Yokozuna, and afterwards Hulk Hogan comes out and wins the title, and then he's the big deal again. I always think of it as that. It's hey, I'm back and I'm the star. Thanks for holding my seat, holding my crown for me. Now I'm the king is back. Get out of the way.
Yeah, that's always my favorite. That's the funniest match to me because everyone is just and Bret Hart is saying, "No, Hogan, go, take the crown for me." Anyway, so after the match, Hayabusa comes out and he challenges Kenta Kobashi, who is he's on fire in all Japan. I think he's the Triple Crown champion at the moment, I think.
Yeah.
What is the story behind announcing that, behind making this challenge, and is there already a deal in place? Like, what is the deal behind that?
So with Onita coming back, Hayabusa decided, okay, how am I going to be different? I'm not going to compete with Onita in that style of, just how he is and everything. I can't compete like that. What can I do? I can out wrestle Onita. I can have these better matches. I can have these dream matches. You know what? I'm gonna set up to have matches with all Japan wrestlers, and I can showcase my ability against the Misawas, against the Kobashis, and everything like that. And this was very well known, but Hayabusa had been really close friends with Mitsuharu Misawa. After Hayabusa took over as the top guy, Misawa reached out to him, and they became drinking buddies. They would go out and go bar hopping together and everything. So there was a relationship there already with Misawa, because Misawa kind of respected, it's kind of like, you're the ace, I'm the ace, so there's that kind of relationship where between the two. But so Hayabusa Hayabusa wanted matches with All Japan. So ironically enough, Hayabusa went to Arai and to set up to see if they could get a match, kind of Hayabusa in with All Japan, and Arai ended up having to go through Onita. That was because Onita had that relationship with Giant Baba, so Rai actually got Onita to reach out to Giant Baba, going, "Hey, can Hayabusa start working for All Japan?" And Baba goes, "Okay, but I need to meet with Hayabusa first." So nothing was set in stone when Hayabusa made the announcement, when challenged Kenta Kobashi, and the match obviously never happened in a singles match or anything like that. But Hayabusa had to go meet up with Giant Baba to to kind of get Baba's permission to be able to work, because at this time, no wrestler from another promotion had ever worked in All Japan. So this was kind of a brand new thing that Hayabusa did, where he was coming in from a completely different promotion. Either you were an All Japan guy if you were working All Japan. So this was something brand new at the time. But I also wanted to make mention, as far as the December 11th show, and we were talking about Onita and everything, just to kind of show like Onita and just what he thought of himself and everything. And sorry, you there?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Were you going to ask about the show? I didn't, because I didn't know if because we kind of moved on from the December 11th, but I wanted to talk about Onita and the money he made for the show and stuff.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. Yeah, how did the show draw?
Sorry,
how did the fan? No, we were just going off, and I didn't want to cut. I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did the show draw? What was Onita's impact? Was he booed? Was he cheered and everything?
So this show was a sellout, and it was a financial success. And fans weren't. They didn't boo Onita or anything like this for this show. I mean, I think coming out with Mr. Pogo helped him and everything as well. But it sold out. They drew nearly 8,000 people for an 8,000 nearly 8,000 seat building. But here's the issue. So Onita reached out without telling Arai or FMW. He reached out to BMG Video, which was the video company that did the commercial videos for Onita's FMW. He reached out to them and came up with his own deal for them to videotape his match and everything. And so this really upset Toshiba MEMI. They'd taken over the commercial releases for FMW after Onita, with the Hayabusa era FMW. And so they go, wait, why is BMG going to release a video when we own the rights to, we have a deal with FMW? And so they had to come up with a deal where only this Onita match, the Onita Pogo match, would air, or with BMG Video. And so Toshiba couldn't release the Onita match on their commercial tape. So the Toshiba release has Hayabusa versus Sasuke as the main event, and the BMG Video has the Onita Pogo Terry Funk match, and then they also threw in some like old Onita Pogo matches also to kind of fill out the tape and everything. So this show has two different commercial tape release for this, and like I said, it really upset the Toshiba people who kind of saved FMW, because without them they wouldn't have any TV at the time. But then you also have, like I said, it was just a financial success. But then so you have Onita. He took the royalties from the BMG, and so he got $40,000. So he got all the money from the BMG video. So FMW did not make at this time, they didn't receive any money from the BMG side of it. So Onita made $40,000. Then he goes, "I'm taking $50,000 for this show." So the show is. So he made $50,000 personal, and the show only made $80,000. I mean, which is a huge success for FMW. They made $80,000, and so like I said, Onita pocketed $50,000, and then the commercial he got $40,000, so he got $90,000 right there. And FMW go, "Hey, you got to pay us that money back." The BMG Video, and Onita goes, "Okay, I'll do it. It took him 2 years to pay him $30,000 back, so he ended up pocketing $10,000 eventually. Profiting $10,000, but he got 40. FMW didn't see that money for the $30,000 for 2 years. So, like I said, already right away you're dealing with Onita, and just dealing with all the Onita politics and everything, and just taking all the money. And so, like I said, a successful financial show wasn't a successful financial show for the company itself, because Onita ended up taking all the money.
Well, thank God that they won that money in that poll.
Yeah, exactly.
The poll match.
That $200,000.
So okay. So the show drew. Do you know the number on the show? The people.
I think it was like 7,993. Something. It was close to 8,000.
All right, cool. And So, okay, because I've only got two more notes here. Do you have anything else you want to say about the show before we go on?
Yeah, as far as the overall show, it was okay. I would consider it a disappointment, especially this is, kind of a great time period with FMW, and, the Kawasaki show was a great show. The Shio Dome show we talked about in August was okay. It was a lot of bad matches. The Tanaka, Kanemaru match was great though. And then we have this show, which, like I said, it was kind of disappointing. The Kanemaru Gladiator match was pretty good, but this Onita Street fight was okay. Which was kind of a disappointment. So it's kind of a disappointment overall, I would say, just as far as big matches around this time period, because the Corrigan Hall shows were so great. With so many great six-man matches. So to kind of have two back-to-back Shio Dome and the Komazawa shows in August and December kind of be, slightly disappointing shows, although they were financial successes as far as crowd goes, I would kind of consider it a disappointment overall, considering this is a great time period for FMW.
So this goes on to on December 24th, FMW, they ran a show in Kurokan Hall. They drew like I think 900 or so people, and they only held two actual matches. What was this show? What kind of was this?
This was a fan appreciation show, so I don't know as far as like how they were able to, put the money down for a Corgan Hall show and not, expect the normal Corgan Hall number. But it was just a fan appreciation show. It had Mr. Pogo's retirement. Also, Mr. Pogo was getting married around this time period as well. But then you also had all the FMW wrestlers, and FMW had a fan club around this time period as well. So it was, a big way for the fan club members to get to meet with the wrestlers and stuff like that. And all the wrestlers dressed up as different gimmicks. So like you had Hayabusa, he dressed up as Miss Mongol, who was a FMW women's wrestler at the time. And so like you had one of the wrestlers dressed up as Pandita. You had all these, just everyone just dressed up in different gimmicks. It's just kind of a comedy show, and like I said, it was just kind of it wasn't taped or anything like that. It was just kind of give the fan club and the hardcore fans something to kind of like I said, a fan appreciation type way of just kind of getting to hang out with the wrestlers and just kind of watch a comedy show, and no one took it serious. No one took any major bumps or anything like that.
Yeah, I was actually able to attend one of these for Freedoms last December, and they're a good time. Like you said, the wrestlers come out. There's, we had one at a bar, and there was drinks and food, and Gentaro gave me the double eye poke, and it was a fun time. So with that, the year kind of wraps up. I just want to ask one more. So is Onita back? Was this a one-time thing? Are there talks for him to come back full time? And what's going on with FMW and AJP? And damn, let me do that one more time. And what is the relationship at this point with FMW and All Japan?
So as far as Hayabusa or working with All Japan, like I said, he's still gonna have to meet with Giant Baba. It was, I believe, February or so before he would meet up with Giant Baba and the agreement would start up. So, but obviously, like I said, Hayabusa would begin working for All Japan on his off dates of FMW. But as far as Onita coming back full time, he said for this show he was only going to come back one time. Well, then one time came back, then it's the Poro show, I'm coming back just this one time. And then eventually it was all right, he's pretty much back now. Onita didn't want to work a full schedule, and here's another aspect of it is Onita had girlfriends all over the country, and so he wanted to work different cities. He didn't really want to work, during this time period, Onita does not work that many Tokyo shows. It's usually, the Fukuokas or, Sapporo, because he had a girlfriend in each of these cities. And so he wanted to go see each of these girlfriends. So if you see on the show, it's because around this time, it's because he wants to go see his girlfriend in each city. But he's back pretty much he's not full time. He's not working every show, but like I said, he's working, he's working a good number of shows based off of wanting to see his girlfriend.
All right, cool.
Girlfriends.
And overall, how would you say FMW did in 1996?
It did a great. This was probably the number one year for the promotion. I mean, as far as the new FMW and whatnot. Like I said, but also it had to do with the wrestling bubble in Japan, and all these promotions are doing great. All Japan, New Japan, Michinoku Pro is able to run Sumo Hall. Just things like that it's kind of the boom period for Japanese wrestling, and so FMW definitely took advantage of it. They made, like I said, they were running a profitable promotion. They were also kind of innovative around. They started their own website in 1996, which not a lot of companies had a website in 1996. So I believe they were the first Japanese promotion to have a website covering everything. So they were kind of innovative in that aspect. But like I said, it was definitely a successful year. They had a lot of sponsors, promoting their shows and everything like that. And Hayabusa's back now. Hayabusa is going to work the full-time 1997. His injuries are pretty much, it still took a little while in 1997 for them to fully recover, but he, is 1997 is probably going to be his, prime year also. So, the future's looking bright for FMW at this point, with having, started off with such a struggle, after Onita retired, and, only drawing 200, 300 fans at the beginning. Now it's a legitimate company. They're the number 3 company, and Onita actually had said, he wanted to become the number 1 or 2 promotion. He wanted to move FMW to, above New Japan and All Japan. Obviously, that never happened, but, at this time period, it wasn't out of the reach that this was a possibility. But obviously, like I said, it never ended up happening because All Japan and New Japan were hot also around this time period.
Okay, that'll do it for 1996. Before we go, you had mentioned last episode that FMW, they, the Super Battle FMW show, we're talking right now, 2018, that they found a sponsor. They've got a couple shows coming up. Do you have any other news, maybe about Onita's candidate? What is he running for, mayor?
Yeah, he's running for mayor of Saga Kansai. The election's April 15th. So in a couple weeks, we'll find out if he is the mayor. Also, I may mention last episode where they were going to have a Hayabusa kind of just talk show segment in Tokyo, and so a bunch of the FMW wrestlers, had met up and talked about Hayabusa, told stories and everything. But they also announced on this show, Kanemaru is going to be promoting his own wrestling promotion called Ing, so it's ING, and it's going to be, just his friends Tanaka, Kuroda, Hosaka against low-level talent. It's going to be like a wrestling. It's going to be in a little 250-seat concert hall, so it's going to have a band as well as a wrestling show also. But they also announced that Super Leather was going to be coming in for one of their shows in the summer. So Mike Kirshner's going to be showing back up in Japan here in the next couple months. Him and Kanemaru are pretty close.
I mute my mic when you're talking, but I let out a belly laugh at Ing. It's going to be Ing. And one other bit of news I just want to say, Freedom's held a show on, I don't have the date in front of me. I believe it was March 25th, or maybe the 24th. But in the main event, Takeda 22nd. Okay, 22nd. Thank you. In the main event, Takeda defeated Kenji Fukumoto, and after the match, I haven't seen the full video. I've seen highlights from the Battle Men show, and obviously a bunch of photos. But afterwards, Violento Jack came out. He attacked the two of them. He challenged Takeda to a match, which this is for me, it's a dream match that I've been waiting for a year for, and I just can't go. I spent an hour looking at trains and planes and doing math, and I just can't afford to go. It's just too much to take that time off work and everything. But they're going to be having a match on May 2nd. And then it was just an incredible angle for a promotion, the level of Freedoms. So we have that match coming up, and actually Takeda is gonna wrestle Abdullah Kobayashi for the Big Japan Deathmatch title on May 5th. It's gonna be in Yokohama, but I think there's a real strong chance that Takeda might end up holding both titles, which for me as a big Takeda mark, I will say that. I think that's such a awesome, I'm excited for this match. That's all I can say. I'm really excited, and I keep joking that this is kind of creating the deathmatch triple crown in a way, to have both of the titles on the same guy. So I think it's very interesting. I
would worry though. Loses to Jack, though. I would worry if he loses to Jack that he's going to lose to Kobayashi. Politics.
I was thinking that as well. I was like, it's either going to be one or the two. He's either going to win or he's going to lose both. But if you've seen Kobayashi move, I mean, there's just not much he can do. And I would think that Big Japan is building up Masaya Takahashi to be the one to take the title from Takeda sometime this year. I mean, this is all my speculation. I have no
Big
idea.
Japan's weird, though. I mean, they ran Takahashi versus Ueki at Sumo Hall, so they're that's not something that you would think would draw at Sumo Hall. So their bookings kind of all over the place, just random sometimes.
Yeah, another thing that is always kind of mentioned is that Big Japan, they never change the titles in Tokyo. They always change it in a different city, and Yokohama is kind of a city where they might want to do a title change. We'll have to see. It's either going to be one or the other, like you said. But okay, that's about it. Brett, if you want to just give people your your contact info and where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Bahu FMW, Instagram Bahu FMW World. Post 20 pictures, 20 pictures every 4 or 5 days or so of just FMW shots, FMW IWA wing, just from magazine. I have a collection of hundreds of Japanese wrestling magazines from the 90s, and just every couple days I go through and take about 20 pictures or so of what I find. I'm also on YouTube, Brett FMW. I just came out with a Masato Tanaka career music video, and I showed it to Tanaka, and he loved it. Said it was the best tribute video he's ever seen of him, that's been made of him. And he posted on Facebook, he posted on Twitter. A bunch of Japanese wrestlers commented how great it was. Takashita from DDT mentioned how great it was. Hartley Jackson from 01. So a lot of wrestlers got to see this video, so I was really proud of it. I think it came out really well. It was a 30-minute video that covered all 25 years of his career, so I was really proud of that. And like you said earlier, Bahu FMW, Bahu's FMW Worlds is bahufmw.com, as well as fmwwrestling.us. And every month or so, I do a news update, and I keep up with all the results of all the FMW Freedom wrestlers throughout the years, and just anything to do with FMW Freedoms I write about.
And also Bahu is probably the only place that you're really going to be able to find to be able to find DVD copies of the ongoing Freedom shows. So yeah, if you want to add that stuff, if you want to create a bookshelf of shows, Bahu is the guy to go to for that. One other bit of news that we didn't talk about, just a small thing. Mr. Ganosuke, he actually wrestled his final match at Kuroken Hall. Again, I don't have the date in front of me, but he wrestled for
March
Ice
25th.
Ribbon. March 25th. You know
March.
Everything, man. But yeah, it was he wrestled for Ice Ribbon, which is a women's company, but they do a lot of stuff with men, and they actually do a lot of hardcore, and they do some death matches here and there. But he had
he had helped. Yeah, he had helped train a lot of the girls back then. He was the Ice Ribbon dojo trainer back in 2008, 2009, 2010. So a lot of these girls that he worked with, those are girls he helped train and everything 10 years ago or so.
Now, when is going to be his final show?
That's gonna be April 15th. So he came back 3.5 years ago. He didn't want to come back, and Guts Ishijima, who runs Guts World, said, "Please come back. Please start working for us. You'll help us a lot." And so Ganosuke came back, and he's worked various indie promotions as well as Guts World, but Guts World was kind of his main promotion. And Guts World is closing down April 15th, and with that, Ganosuke announced that he's going to retire again. So he's going to wrestle his last match on April 15th for the last Guts World show. Shinjuku face. He's going to team up with Michio Kajiyama, who's a Nagoya-based wrestler who kind of dressed him. He's kind of got the same tights and the blonde hair and everything. He's going to take on Tatsumi Fujinami and Hiro Saito. Fujinami is one of Ganosuke's childhood favorites growing up. He was a big New Japan fan. I think it's his second favorite wrestler behind Riki Choshu. So he's going to wrestle him in his final match, and then afterward, he's already married. He got married a couple weeks ago, and he's going to move back to Kumamoto, where he was originally from, back when he was 17, 18, when he went to college and everything. So he's moving. He's completely giving up the wrestling business this time. He will have nothing to do with the wrestling business after April 15th.
All right. So with that, we're gonna wish you farewell, and we'll be back. We'll be back next time with 1997. And we're just going to keep on going. So thank you guys for tuning in. See you later.